Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward, Chapter 150. She sang out notes of power, terrible and cold, biting deeply into her flesh. Even as she sang them, Millie felt incredibly frail. She had just been... But no. She had not truly been awake, had she? How could she have allowed herself to become a prisoner to the nameless god? It struck at her. She could feel it waiting in the darkness of her mind, for her resolve to weaken. Millie looked down and saw her hands were charred and smoking, bone and sinew poking through in places where the flesh had been burned away. Her eyes widened and she screamed, but no sound came. Like leaden iron, her mouth mechanically opened again, hot words of fire pouring out on her tongue. Power to bind. Power to transform. Power to cage what could not be held. Shifting mirrors radiated outwards, beyond the edge of her vision. She was not as she had been before. In place of her fear, she felt a molten hot fury building within her. She moved her gaze and her vision spun wildly. Blackness and great explosions of light alternated around her. Her mind struggled to make sense of what she felt more than saw. Looking above, Millie saw an immense statue of bronze and jade. Its maw was terrible, but it huddled against the darkness, shaking its mammoth limbs uncontrollably. Above it sat a blinding light that scoured her skin like a million screams in her ears. Millie raised her skeletal arms and could not stop the words that came blistering forth past her teeth. Words she did not understand, in a language she had never heard. Above the blinding glare sat a perfect emerald gem. It sat on a pedestal. As memory flooded her, Millie began to wail, futilely blocking the glare with her insubstantial limbs. Like a commandment that she could not escape, it demanded her attention amid the pain. Horrified, Millie tried to wrest herself away from it, but it grew in size until every part of her vision was filled with a brilliant jewel. The statue fell backwards, falling through the layer of crystal as if it were parting mere water. Encapsulated in the gem, its maw froze, forming a terrible relief that Millie could not pull her gaze from. The call beckoned to her, pleading, demanding, unrelenting. Beneath her, an enormous void spread outwards in all directions. Strange symbols covered her from head to toe. They formed blistering fissures in her skin. In horrid fascination, Millie saw the fissures bend and warp, transforming her blackened skin into blackened scales. Patches of gold sprouted from her, forming tight diamond patterns, even as her limbs folded into her trunk. Her visage strained, then changed abruptly, bringing her surroundings into focus. She could see each perfect facet of the jewel she coveted more than life itself. It sat waiting for her, waiting to be taken. Her cruel visage reflected back at her, and a snake's forked tongue flicked out between twin fangs, each longer than a man's arm. Realization tore at her, and a million insects screamed and died in gouts of emerald fire as the brilliant gem exploded. Millie dropped to her knees. Her dress was singed in several places. She could still feel the furnace heat on her face as she rose. The bed burst into flames behind her. Millie threw herself away to shield herself from the smoking remains as the fire burned intensely, then eventually burned itself out as if it had never been. Looking down, Millie saw the sash of black flecked with gold tightly wrapped about her waist. It pulsed like a twin heartbeat. Kayana burst into the tent a moment later, shock plain on her face. "Millie, can you move?" Kayana asked quickly. "Yes." She still felt dazed from the intensity of the vision. Without another word, Kayana placed herself between Millie and the former inferno and moved the two of them from the tent. A ring of men stood around the cloth tent, their expressions carefully neutral, spear tips glinting in the fading light. A worried Annalisa stood nearby with her grandfather Jaffiz. Millie felt cold inside, deadened. Kayana moved close for a moment and lifted a hand as if to touch her, then after another moment slowly backed away. She did not speak. Millie regarded those around her, her gaze suddenly hard. Zaxxas protects you. My will bends to the very sands to my call. Silently, two of the guardsmen approached, faces solemn. Millie stood as they wrapped her in sheets of silk, their deft hands smearing away any ash that had lingered on her face and arms. Another guard came forward with a bronze chest and placed it before her, before stepping eagerly away to return to his former position. Millie knelt slowly and touched the ornamental chest. It had strange twisting lines drawn into its surface, giving a sense of vertigo as she followed them with her eye. Undoing the clasp, the lid opened easily, revealing a pair of solid jade armlets that were inlaid with gold. They were beautiful beyond measure, the work of a master artisan. They felt almost weightless as she found herself picking them up. A moment of tension followed. Dare she put them on? The feeling of danger, however, was brushed aside by her anticipation and awe of their beauty. They fit perfectly, as if they had been crafted for her alone. Millie had never seen such wealth in one place in her entire life. She felt like some stranger in a different body, her deceit yet undiscovered. Kayana, what's happening to me? Millie felt the thick, nauseating feeling of bile rise in her stomach at the dangerous act she played, feigning the living vessel of a god. She had acted out of a necessity, but Millie had come into contact with ancient forces that bewildered her senses, and was filled with dread that had threatened to drown her whole. I do not know, but I am here. I will watch your back. Do not give in to the viper. It seeks to consume your soul. Kayana looked straight at her, before bowing and retreating away again. Millie felt sick, but crushed the feeling from her conscious mind. She felt the icy fangs on the nape of her neck, invisible, like a coat of sheer gauze. The alien entity thrashed within her. When she closed her eyes, she saw her face becoming one with that of the great adder she had bested, Zaxxas.